If you love the thrill of racing but hate the risks, then buckle up. Everything Simulated is here to merge adrenaline with absolute safety. In a world where technology meets adrenaline, Everything Simulated is revolutionizing driver training with state-of-the-art simulators. From truck training to the thrill of motorsports, our simulators offer the most realistic experiences across all automotive applications. Gone are the days of endless bookwork and basic drills. Now it's all about hands-on, pulse-pounding action that prepares you for the real deal. Whether you're maneuvering a heavy mining vehicle or racing a high-speed car, our simulators, equipped with cutting-edge technology from leaders like SimRigs and TrackRacer, bring every nuance of the drive to life. And talk about making a mark. We're not just building simulators, we're fostering talent. From grassroots motorsports to professional series like the Aussie Outlaw GT3, sponsored by us, Everything Simulated is fueling dreams and careers. Ready to feel the excitement of the racetrack under your fingertips? Connect with us, and let's build your next simulator adventure together. Remember, we support those who support us. Join the Everything Simulated family, and let's race towards the future.
After a scintillating, action-packed first round at Virginia International Raceway North, we come to Summit Point with some rule changes, some procedural changes, and a lot more drivers. This is going to be an epic round indeed. Welcome to round 2 of the Everything Simulated Formula Ford Recruitment Series by Formula Drivers League, supported by Player One Sim Gear. I'm Reese Gardner, Jared Cole alongside me in the commentary box and producing behind the scenes. Well, Jared, we certainly had a lot of fun at VIR last round, but big talking points coming out of the last round of this recruitment series. We've gotten rid of the mandatory pit stop requirement and the mandatory virtual safety car 20 minutes in. The VSC will now only be called if there's an incident that requires it, and drivers have enough fuel to get all the way to the end of the race. It's going to be an out-and-out sprint.
Absolutely, Will. Great to be in the booth with you tonight, Reese. And yeah, look, honestly, I applaud the move from the league admins. It's something that the drivers were asking for. And really, it'll bring out the best in these Formula Fords, won't it? These cars are designed to be an end-to-end sprint race. And absolutely what I expect we'll see tonight. Really, the thing that is boggling my mind this evening here at Summit Point, it's not a particularly long track, only 3.2 Ks to get around it. The conditions, by the way, absolutely perfect for tonight's racing, but how are we going to fit all of these cars on this track this evening?
Yeah, they're somehow managing to do it in qualifying, so I think we'll be okay. And fun fact, if you weren't aware, Summit Point actually used to be shorter than this. That little flibbity bit up the top of the track map, that was a later addition to the circuit. It used to just be a straight run double right-hander round to the end of the lap. So yeah, interesting stuff. Summit Point, bit of a historic venue. It's been around for quite some time, and it hosted IMSA GTO back in the day, at some point in the 1980s as well. So there's a lot of history and pedigree to this place. It is known first and foremost as one of the first road tracks you drive on as an iRacing member. This is part of the base content. It has been from the very start, and I think all of the drivers will be intimately familiar with every inch of this asphalt.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, to be fair, it is showing its age a little bit. So iRacing, if you're listening, please give it a bit of a work over, shall we? Just a nice little graphical update. It wouldn't hurt. Summit Point, it definitely deserves it. For the amount of drivers that have been around it in its time on iRacing, it's one of those tracks that, look, when you put it alongside some of the new content coming out later this evening, in fact, with the season changeover, it's looking a little worse for wear after so many laps turned here. So fingers crossed it does get a bit of makeover love sometime soon.
Yeah, it has gotten texture updates which have made it look nice and pretty, but yeah, a lot of graphical elements of this circuit. You can tell this is one of the first tracks that was added to iRacing back in the late 2000s, but it's still an incredibly entertaining circuit to drive on, Jared. We've got overtaking opportunities aplenty around here, not just the first corner where you can pick up a massive slipstream, but also the runs down to the sort of double hairpin section in the middle of the lap. Well, we go to qualifying, last few minutes, and Team Max Boost playing this one perfectly. You'd think the entire field was Max Boost drivers from this angle.
It certainly looks that way, and as we look at the screen coming alive with our timing tower, of course, you can't see it right at the moment, but that is a Team Max Boost 1, 2, 3, and 4 in qualifying so far. We've seen a few other drivers, getting in amongst it along the way, but the Max Boost pace train you can see on your screen is absolutely dominating in qualifying times right now. The closest, Jackson Rahana in 5th place. Look, he's not far off the back of Daniel McCrone's time, but of course McCrone had a cracker of a round last week, and looking set to perhaps repeat that performance here tonight.
Yeah, McCrone took pole for the first round of this 4-round recruitment series here at VIR for the opening round, and he currently sits on provisional pole, but only 45 thousandths of a second ahead of his teammate Kane Ryder, who was the winner of the 30-minute race at VIR last week. Scott Bartine, he has been active in many different series, even races in a couple of the American and Canadian leagues that I'm also involved with, so very familiar with seeing his name up on the screen. But corrugated iron, not exactly the best choice for a low-level Formula car. Want to try and save some weight, but I don't know, maybe you lose a few kilos through the rust alone.
I have a theory. The dimples on a golf ball make it more aerodynamic. Maybe the corrugations on the iron. I don't know. Maybe Bartine's onto something we just, we aren't thinking with our big brains here tonight, Reece.
Optimizing airflow. That would be very interesting indeed. Well, Bartine, of course, driving for Everything Simulated Racing, one of the supporters of this series. Nicholas Merrifield, meanwhile, finding his way into the top 20, and looks like the gap is only a couple hundredths of a second at most. It is an incredibly tight qualifying session here, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, Jared, we have plenty more drivers who have turned up for round 2. We have got 40 drivers in this session. We can't even show them all on the timing tower. That's how many of them there are. Crammed in around a circuit that's only 3.2 kilometers long. That's frankly insane.
The starting grid is going to stretch halfway up the final straight at this point.
God.
Look, just to give you an idea of it, of just how much we are not able to show on our timing tower tonight, let's jump to Tristan McLaren, who's not having a great run. And even jumping all the way down here, you can see we have to split the tower just to get to this end of the field and show off the drivers down this end. So look, folks, if you're watching this back as a driver tomorrow night, or indeed after the race this evening, I will apologise if you don't see your name much if you are below number 30, because I don't know how we're going to fit you all in. That's just the way it's going to be tonight.
Yeah, and with only 30 minutes of racing ahead of us, that means during the race, that's going to be what, like, if you were to split screen time evenly between all of the drivers, yeah, like 45 seconds per person or something like that. That's insane.
You know what? We'll give it a crack. Why not?
Yes, yes. So at least we're giving everyone some screen time in qualifying. Brodie McConkey for Proline Esports following his teammate, but fortunately not off the racetrack. McConkey getting
just to call this out, Reece, sorry, I'm just flagging because our race controller, as always, Jimmy, jumping into the YouTube chat a couple of minutes ago, and since then it's even updated. We now have the first 28 cars in qualifying all within a second of each other. The gap from first to 28 is 1 second here, and that's nuts.
I've just seen that myself. That is insanity. That is a closer field spread than most supercars grids, honestly. That's crazy. Craig Edwards, man I'm very familiar with. We've raced together for a long time. Teammates at Fusion Sim Racing, but to be honest, I'm a terrible teammate. I haven't really kept up with him. So we'll see what Craig can do in the midst of this race. Very fast in open wheelers, as I'm sure long-time viewers of FDL are aware. Alexei Watson, a name that I have not seen before for Synergy Sim Racing. I did catch Watson, I believe, at the previous round, but Synergy is here too, and they are out in force, looking to break a bit further into the top 15. There's the checkered flag
took the silver championship in the F4 series that ran just before this recruitment series, so got a bit of pace on him, does Alexei Watson.
Yeah, it certainly does. He's taking to the void, it seems, now that the checkered flag has flown in the qualifying session. And it looks like Chris Swadling is going to be one of the last drivers to get a time on the board from position number 20. He is going to practice a pit entry. There may not be a mandatory pit stop anymore in this series, but there is a chance that drivers will have to come into the pits, and it's worth practicing around here. It's a bit of a difficult pit entry at Summit Point, but that is the end of the qualifying session. And we can go through our grid. Kane Ryder ultimately taking pole position with Henry Zimmerman alongside him on the front row. Then it's McCrohan and Dan Ackland rounding out our second row. Vaughan Ryder and Jackson Rihanna round out your top 6. Mitchell Albert starts in 7th alongside Dan Bartush. Then it's Brodie McConkey and Mark Healy who round out the top 10. Madeline McGee and Jackie Chung are 11th and 12th. Craig Edwards starting lucky 13th alongside Alexei Watson, who we were following at the end of qualifying. Aidan Loretti, followed by Ben Ryder, who is separated from his Team Max Boost teammates by quite a few positions. Anthony Bate and Tom Donoghue, our league administrator, on the 9th row, with Hugh McLaughlin and Chris Swadling rounding out the top 20. And just like that, we're halfway through the field. Scott Pocock and David Gallo on the 11th row, with Michael Scott and Alex Stevens on row 12. Daniel Byrne and Nicholas Merrifield, 25th and 26th, followed by Angus Milne, Joshua Van Treek, Scott Bartine, and Tony Baker to round out your top 30 positions. 10 to go as we flick over the page. Nathan Verney for Pace Syndicate. Good to see Nathan here, starting alongside Matt Tesoriero, with Mark Heppel and Jason Madden rounding out your top 34. Ash Williams starts alongside Pete Zeidler on the 18th row. Then it's Tristan McLaren, Mitchell Campbell, and Dennis Hawkins, who round out our drivers who set times in qualifying. Jimmy Peacock, of course, is in race control, and Jason Neal also registered for the server, but he has not made an appearance in practice or qualifying, so I don't think he'll be taken to the grid. That makes it 39 drivers here, Jared. This is going to be a very interesting one indeed.
When was the last time you took that long to read through a grid, Reece? That was epic, mate. Well done for making it through. Let's take a look at the lineup of cars.
Yeah, it is crazy, and just like that, the grid time is over, so we timed that pretty well. Kane Ryder starts on pole position with Team Max Boost 1, 2, and 3. And away we go. Green flag flies, and it looked like a bit of a sluggish getaway from Kane Ryder as they find their way down to turn 1. The Max Boost teammates are going to push each other on their way into this heavy braking zone to start off the lap at Summit Point. 30 minutes on the cards. Can they all get through the first hairpin cleanly? Couple of locked brakes here and there, but looks like space being given at the front of the field. There has been an incident in the midfield. I see Donoghue, Ryder, and Bartine all falling down the order, and plenty of smoke on their way out of the first turn. Well, they are through to the rest of the lap now, and Kane Ryder's still holding on from Macron, Zimmerman, and Vaughan Ryder. Daniel Ackland has fallen out of the top 4 there for Synergy Sim Racing. Let's see what he can do to stay in touch. An incident down at the hairpin, couple of cars spun around, and it looks like one of them is Alexei Watson. Just getting going is Craig Edwards, so they've got involved with each other down at that very difficult braking zone. That's a real shame there for the both of them, but the rest of the field will continue on only just around the end of the first lap here at Summit Point. Maximize the exit as best you can over the tarmac. Run off, someone going off there out of the final turn. Very slow indeed. That's Mitchell Albert, who's going to go falling down the order.
My left ear absolutely lighting up at the moment, Reese, with race radio controls, control call-ins. So many incidents on that first lap, and it's not hard to believe considering the number of cars we have on the grid here tonight. There were a couple of big ones amongst that. It looks like Mark Healy just flying off the track in about turn 4 that we'll go back and have a look at in a moment. Just waiting to hear a little more from race control on what's happened with a number of those, but that turn 1 incident was a big one, and I'm not quite sure who it was that was helicoptering off the track. We've seen another car going around on those cold tyres. It looks like that might have been Milne, Angus Milne from Racing Simulated.
It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. Jackie Chung was the one that spun there, and Hugh McLaughlin ended up getting locked up into him as the field came through. That is a real shame. I mean, there's so many drivers here who are down like double-digit positions, and a couple of drivers in the pits. Ben Ryder, it looks like, is towed. Dan Bartush has only just gotten back out on the racetrack after having to take a tow himself. But I think Jackie Chung is one of the biggest losers of position in this field, down 24 places, and it looks like Tony Baker is the next one to come a cropper. He's actually gone beyond the bounds of the racetrack and up onto the berm.
Can't be good for the suspension, Tony. But, testing a bit of off-road racing, I have heard whispers of the ideas of taking cars on tracks they don't belong on before in iRacing, but I didn't think we'd see it here tonight.
No, certainly not. Incidentally, thanks to the treaded tyres, I think the S1600 go pretty well up Mount Washington with its unpaved section.
Don't tempt me.
Well, battle for 9th is on, and Scott Pocock is leading the way there with Anthony Bate and David Gallo chasing. Daniel Byrne up 13 positions. That's Joshua Van Treek trying to work his way around Mitchell Albert. Outside line, and there's contact, and Van Treek is sent off. Van Treek was one of many drivers who gained a huge amount of positions in that opening lap. Mitchell Albert may very well have a little tap on the shoulder from race control for that, and makes him fall down to the battle for 15th place, which is headed up by Nathan Verney, up 16 places. You want to look for a hard charger. It looks like Peter Zeidler is the one to get it done. He is up 20 places to 16th.
Some real moves going on throughout the field, but assisted by the huge number.
Ackland has come together with looks like Brodie McConkey and Vaughan Ryder, and oh dear, it's gotten a bit worse there. Ackland potentially didn't have steering in his car and ended up clattering straight into Vaughan Ryder again, so that's far from ideal for either of them. I think just a coming together, not checking if the re-entry was okay. Oh dear, race control is going to have their hands full tonight, so this is the second contact there. It looks like Ryder was just trying to get back onto the racetrack. I don't think Ackland realized he was coming up on him there.
Yeah, that's not what you want to see. We'll go back just a little further and see the initial touch, and they were almost 3 wide here. Vaughan Ryder on the outside, nowhere to go.
Ooh.
Gets launched, and really unfortunate coming back onto track to get caught up in it once again with Ackland.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that's unfortunately put Brodie McConkey down a couple of places, and it means our top 4 have broken away from the rest of the field. This is the fight for 8th. Daniel Byrne up 17 places. David Gallo up 13. Excellent job there as we move to our top 4. Jackson Rihanna, who got on the podium last week at Virginia, is now right up there with Henry Zimmerman, Daniel McCrohan, and Kane Ryder. So he is the cat amongst the Team Max Boost Pigeons.
Our friendly race control Jimmy Peacock is in full panic station screaming for help in the YouTube chat. 10 incidents reported in 3 laps. Best of luck to you, Jimmy. I cannot help you, mate. You are on your own.
Now, if this race was like an hour long, he'd probably be okay, but we're only going to be racing for 30 minutes here, 6 of which have already elapsed. So, best of luck, Jimmy. I wouldn't want to be in your position. Let's move up to the battle for 8th here. Oh, call it 9th. Swaddling, Gallo, Bate, Scott, and Zeidler all fighting hard through the back half of this circuit. If you get the right kind of exit, you can pick up a slipstream to come into the final corner. Doesn't look like that's going to be much of an overtaking opportunity for Anthony Bate there. As round the outside, Mr. Stevens in 16th place. Alex is trying his best to work his way past Mitchell Campbell, and it looks like he's going to round up a run into turn 1. A bit of slipstream being taken by, I believe that might be Mark Heppel behind in the red machine. Much faster corner than you think there at turn 1, and it looks like Vernie had a problem ahead, and that's forced them 3 wide on the way up to turn 2. This is not ideal. You don't want to be stuck in the middle on a corner like this, but they all managed somehow to get through it cleanly.
I have no idea how all those drivers found space just there. It narrows right up as you come through that bend, and I think everyone at least fairly aware of it at that point. A little bit of a lock up there from Mitchell Campbell, but manages to keep it going. And again, just a few little touches happening here in between a few of these drivers. There's not a lot of space on parts of this track. And of course, these cars need the ideal line if you want to be quick around here. So far, though, my race control here is starting to calm down a little, but only because I think everyone's called everything in now, and they're waiting for Jimmy to catch up if he can.
Yeah, I think now the drivers are moving into race mode. They're getting into the rhythm here. 6 laps in. This is lap 7 for our leaders. And Daniel McCrohan and Kane Ryder will be trading places up the front. McCrohan takes the lead. Jackson Rihanna unable to make much of an impression on them for the moment. 3-way fight for 8th place. Daniel Byrne, Michael Scott, and Chris Swaddling here, as Swaddling looks for a move up the inside of Scott, but it's not going to happen for the moment. Is there any offer of an overtake down here at this braking zone? You go flat out through this downhill corner, and then you have to get on the brakes nice and stable for this tight left-hander, and the car behind them is catching up massively. I think that might be Peter Zeidler, who is now up 25 places.
Massive drive from Pete so far, managing to avoid all of the carnage somehow. Best of luck, Jimmy. He's managed to get what looks like the first of the penalties out. I think we're about to see an absolute swarm of race control messages coming through, so keep your eye on the top of the screen as we go back and take a look at some of the early incidents that poor Jimmy Peacock is working through. And the first one, Adrian Loretti on into turn 1. Just absolute chaos here.
Oh, yeah, he got rammed in the rear a little bit there, getting on the brakes early as you should for the first corner of a race, and looks like Tom Donahue ended up getting sent into the air there. Multiple cars coming together in an open wheel series at a circuit like this. The only place you're going to be going is airborne.
Very lucky to land upright again, and to be able to keep going, though. That's probably the best case scenario, really, if you're going to go up and over someone else's wheel.
Yeah, in many ways, these cars are a bit stronger than they look. I mean, they can definitely deal with getting flipped, and as long as they land right side up, they're usually okay. It's the contact with the walls, sort of front to rear contact with the wheels, that you need to be careful of in these things. The suspension will snap and bearings will break, and ultimately you'll end up in the garage. But keep an eye out on the battle for 14th for the moment. Campbell leading this one. Vernie now back up to speed, and Mitchell Albert and Alex Stevens find themselves with another driver for company. Craig Edwards has joined at the fray here. Speaking of Edwards, no further action from him. Spin for Alexei Watson. That is
This is back
the
on
reason
lap 1 at the race start, yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason for the big incident that we saw down there. And Watson has been able to make up some time in the midst of things. Edwards has gotten past Stevens meanwhile for 17th place. Craig's down 4 spots from where he started at the moment. He got involved in some of the lap 1 shenanigans, and now he is putting his car every which way trying to gain something more.
While that one was going on lap 1, the one that we just saw in the background that I want to get back and take a look at Mark Healy and Dan Bartush getting into it here. Wheels overlapping the whole way down, and off they go.
Yep, out past the concrete barrier and the tyre bundle, and it looks like car 195 is stuck.
Yeah, that's an open diff for you, not going anywhere.
Yeah, so Dan Bartush now 4 minutes and 20 seconds in the garage there. That's going to be the end of his round. The 8th place fight is still going on here. Now it's going to be Daniel Byrne taking it from Peter Zeidler as Chris Swadling spins in the foreground there. They are down 1 in this fight, and now Zeidler's going up the inside here at turn 2. Such a difficult corner. You can hold the outside. It's faster than you think. But for the moment, looks like Zeidler's going to have the inside for the next braking zone. He just needs to hold strong round the outside, picks up a little bit of the grass, get on the brakes as late as you like, and he's only just going to get through there as Byrne washes wide onto the curb.
That makes 28 spots for Pete Zeidler. What a drive so far. To have started back in 36th, that means he's seen every single one of these incidents that have happened so far and survived them. Great awareness, fantastic driving so far. Not to mention a reasonably quick pace. His best lap so far, though, only a little slower, maybe 2/10 off the top drivers.
Yeah, and speaking of the top drivers, here they are. Jackson Rihanna has mounted another challenge. He is up to 2nd place. And, well, let's see if Kane Ryder and Daniel McCrowan can work together to defend against him. They won't for the moment. Rihanna takes the lead at turn 2 and works it out very nicely indeed. Is there going to be any response from the Max Boost cars? Probably not in the short term. Remember, this race isn't even halfway done at the moment. As long as they stay in the fight, they will be able to strike. And actually, speaking of, I think that really speaks to not just Peter Zeidler's incident avoidance, but the sheer amount of chaos that we've had in this race, that Peter Zeidler has managed to overtake about 3/4 of the field before the race gets to its halfway point.
It's pretty insane when you put it that way, isn't it? It's look, not all of that has been incident related. You know, credit to him for avoiding all the incidents so far, but there's a bunch of other drivers that haven't moved up as far as Pete Zeidler have. We've got a lot of people, you know, in sort of the 10 to 15 spots range, and that's kind of what you expect to pick up in amongst all of the issues we've had so far this evening. But to be up 28 positions, that's not just staying out of the way, that's actually making moves throughout the field. Although he has just handed a position back to Daniel Byrne, so we'll give him some credit still. It's still 27 as he jumps back to 28. They're side by side through turn 1. And Zeidler looking to maintain P8 and starting to think about how on earth he manages to pull back the 5 seconds to Scott Pocock up ahead.
Yeah, he's. I think basically Zeidler's going to hit the metaphorical brick wall here. Without a slipstream, you're not going to advance much further forward than this, so he needs to focus now on the battles with the drivers around him. Almost gets rear-ended there with a late braking from David Gallo, but manages to survive only just. They do come up to Scott Pocock, actually. Incidentally, I think Pocock had an issue. Yeah, he was battling with Brodie McConkey there, and he got on the brakes a bit too late, got on the back of McConkey, and that unsettled his car. Round he went.
And doesn't take much. It's a fairly high speed kind of part of the track. It's twisty for sure, but you're not slowing down much anywhere around Summit Point in a Formula Ford. And so he needed to get that one up and going again as quickly as he could. But an opportunity for Zeidler to maybe make that move. There's still a 5-second gap forward to Brady McConkey, but that's a future peak problem at this stage, because he is right on Pocock's tail and looking for P7.
Now you're seeing the race control messages flash up on the screen, and Jimmy is getting to them, handing out 20-second penalties to Dan Bartush and Ben Ryder for towing without permission. Well, they are currently still stuck in the pits, so I believe that the penalty won't have that much effect on them for this round, but still, you need to ask permission from race control before you tow. Battle everywhere you look. 20th place is under attack there between Swadling and Williams, and 13th is still on as well. Stevens here is got a front row seat to the battle between Craig Edwards and Mitchell Albert, and Edwards is struggling to find his way past Albert for the moment. It's allowing Mitchell Campbell to jet away. Campbell is another hard charger in this field, up 25 places from where he started.
And back out in front, the Max Boost entries have regained control of this lead pack. Rahana just having a bit of a moment and looks to be very, very close to giving up a podium position to Zimmerman. Not quite at this point, but McCrone and Ryder wresting control back from him as they make their way through another lap just over the halfway point. Reece, I don't know how we're ever going to catch up with everything that's gone on. So there's still a laundry list of off tracks and incidents that we haven't gone back to take a look at. And I think at this point, I'm almost scared to tempt fate and go look at it, because I reckon we'll probably see more yet in the second half of this race.
Yeah, I think if you made a highlights video out of this, it would be twice the length of the actual event. That's how much has gone on here, and we're doing our best to try and keep up with it all. But well, we'll stay in touch with our top four for the moment. Coming to the end of the lap here, this is where the slipstream gets picked up, and no surprise to see that Daniel McCrowan is trying to protect the inside. But oh, have a look at that from Jackson Rihanna. He saw the door open and he decided to force it the rest of the way open. Gets back up into second place, but the momentum is with Kane Ryder through the first turn, and it looks like Rihanna was unable to get the traction down like he wanted. Still under pressure from Daniel McCrowan, but McCrowan will back out of it. They can't afford to let Kane Ryder get away. Once you lose the slipstream, that's it, you're done.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of this. Rahana and Ryder are going to keep trading places down that main straight. McCron and Zimmerman just need to stay in it so that Ryder does have the help there. And you could see just how hard it was, even with two cars from the team controlling the front end. Rahana's looking for every opportunity that he can find. The slightest gap meant running two of his wheels off the track, but it's something you can do reasonably comfortably in these Formula Fords without too much of a loss in speed, and certainly plenty of car width to avoid the off-track penalties. Although, look, Ryder could have decided that it was worth it in that case, and it's gained him a position. He's now going to slot in behind Ryder, and he's looking for an opportunity again. McCrowan's starting to reel in, but it's not going to be enough to help hold on up the front for Kane Ryder as Ryder looks to go around the outside into turn one.
Oh, so deep into the turn there, gives Kane Ryder the room to the inside, and Kane will move to the lead ever so briefly. It looks like Rihanna's going to try and push it here into the second corner. He gets alongside again and moves back into the lead. Now, it's all well and good watching them swap places like this, but you got to remember, it's all going to be irrelevant when the white flag flies, because you need to take advantage of the slipstream where you can, and you do it too early and you will get unfortunately repassed by the driver that you just worked so hard to get by. So I appreciate what Rihanna's doing here. He's trying to keep the Max Boost cars on their toes, but he will still be very much under threat.
Yeah, he will. He's really going to have to put the work in down the front straight here to try and set up a couple of lines to just break the gap between himself and the Team Max Boost cars, because right now, with only a 10th separating them, Ryder's going to be all over him, and already they're side by side as they cross the start-finish line. So they're going to go all the way down to turn one, and McCrowan is right back in it. Zimmerman's on his way as well.
Yeah, Zimmerman, who started in second place, he wants to try and get that back, get on the podium, and potentially lock it out for Team Max Boost. Rihanna trying his best there to get past Ryder, but not happening. Back to the battle for 7th. Scott Pocock getting up the inside of Daniel Byrne there at turn 1, and they'll stay that way on the way out. Any further fight here from car 808 remains to be seen. The way the track curves into this left-hander, if you're up the inside, you can certainly consolidate or sort of blend into the inside line if you wish, but looks like that's not going to work in the short term there. Potential move from Anthony Bate, and, well, it looks like that's going to stay as it is for the moment. Very tight battling between those cars. I'm seeing there's been a problem for Nathan Verney. He is falling down the order and grayed out on my timing, so it looks like he may have either towed or had internet issues. That's a real shame for Nathan.
Yeah, a bit of a struggle for him, and it looks like he has dropped from the session completely, so he'll just start to fall through the field until that sort of sorts itself out. Anthony Bate from Pearland Esports was still challenging in that group, but he was carrying a black flag, so he'll be into the pits to serve that penalty, which is going to drop him a long way back. Mitchell Campbell, meanwhile, I reckon he's about the only driver on track at the moment with nobody really around him.
Yeah, you could probably throw Madeline McGee and Brodie McConkey in that as well, the drivers in 5th and 6th. They've had a very quiet race since the first lap. Barely anything to talk about with regards to their race. You keep the leaders in sight and you might just be able to see McGee and McConkey pull into the back of the shots. They are currently about 6.5 seconds behind this group, so got to keep an eye out for them. Peter Zeidler, meanwhile, oh no, looks like his run has come to almost a premature end there. He manages to get going, loses a few positions, but the car is fine. It seems a little bit of contact from behind. Continue on, still up 22 places. That means that Mitchell Campbell now takes the honorary title of hard charger in this race as the slipstream is on for Daniel McCrowan. Trying to pressure Jackson Rihanna into the first turn on the racing line. Bit more grip available to McCrowan, but Rihanna protects the inside beautifully.
We're setting up for a very, very close finish here. Rihanna just cannot get away from these Max Boost cars, and that's not surprising either. With the 3 of them there, they should be able to stay with him pretty easily, even though he is displaying just a bit more pace generally as they make their way around the Summit Point track. But as soon as he's out in front, without that slipstream, it's not going to be enough to start to pull away unless he can really find some tenths through these corners. And I don't think he's leaving very, very much on the table, as it were, at the moment. These front 4, despite the close battle, are still maintaining that almost 6-second gap back to Madeline McGee. You can see just coming into shot at the back there. So still plenty of pace up front here.
Yeah, and it looks like the battle between McGee and McConkey might blossom into something in the last couple of laps, because McConkey made up 0.4 of a second on McGee on the last lap, and oh dear, that's not ideal for Mr. Merrifield there. Looks like maybe contact with Tom Donahue there, and that forces them back into the pack of Milne and Van Treek. So this then becomes another fight. Meanwhile, back at the lead, this is still just incredible. The amount of fighting that we've seen between these 4. The fact that they've been able to keep it clean is certainly worth mentioning. I've got to wonder when they're going to be coming up on some lap traffic, all things considered. And Rihanna's run has been great. He started in 6th, don't forget. And, well, battling for the lead is working out very nicely for him. Looks like our first lapped cars actually are Hugh McLaughlin and Tristan McLaren, who are only a few corners ahead.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at just how far through they are. They're about, 90% of the way done. These guys just passing that sort of 3/4 mark of the track, so there's still probably just enough of a gap that there might be hope yet that these guys don't catch up to the cars still running. Of course, a number of cars in the pits and unlikely to return after some of those early incidents, but for a short track, the Fords are doing a really good job of keeping these 40-odd cars spaced out as we go side by side again down the main straight towards turn 1. It's going to happen every lap as we edge closer and closer to the end of this 30 minutes. We're down to just under 4.5 minutes to go, and I cannot call it yet. We're not going to be able to call this until we get across the line, I think.
No, for sure. The Max Boost cars might just start hanging back here to try and plan a full-on assault on Jackson Rihanna towards the end as the battle for 7th continues here with Byrne, Pocock and Michael Scott getting up the inside there. Looked like Pocock unfortunately caught a bit of the grass on the way out of turn 1. Very easy to do. It is a full-on hairpin, but it is a little bit quicker than you think. Sometimes you can carry a bit too much speed. Meanwhile, here's Dan Ackland, who had an unfortunate coming together with a driver who was unable to keep it on the track on the way into the braking zone, and well, he'll get it back going. Yes, car 128, I believe. Unless I've read that number completely wrong, which I often do.
It happens.
Battle for 7th continuing on here. These guys have not been able to leave each other alone. Who's going to get the best run out of the final corner here? Byrne leads the way in. Michael Scott will be the first to pick up the slipstream with a nice clean run out of the corner there. Then they find their way to the line, going side by side across it. Michael Scott's going to be on the racing line coming into turn 1, but it's very easy to defend into turn 1 at Summit Point, and Byrne will allow the room to come to him. Michael Scott forced wide, and that might give another chance to Scott Pocock to get this done. Up the inside then for Michael Scott, and that will be a successful defense for the moment. Car 033, the next driver, Mitchell Albert, to get a penalty of 5 seconds. And that's going to alter his results somewhat. It's so close.
Just taking some notes here, Reese, to make sure that we do change Jimmy Peacock's name in my database for next race to Oprah, because the way he's handing out penalties here tonight, you have 5 seconds, you have 5 seconds, you have 5 seconds. It's going to be one of those nights for him, isn't it?
Yeah, and a couple of special someones getting 20 seconds. What an honor. Here's the battle for the lead again. We're coming down to 2 laps to go for these drivers. That is super late on the brakes for Daniel McCrowan, and considering how high the engine was revving, I'm surprised that motor didn't blow. I mean, these are, I think, 2.2 litre 4-cylinder engines that these cars use, so that can take a beating, but I don't know if you want to use that much engine braking. Oh no! McCrowan slides and spins out of control, and that's just given the lead to Jackson Rihanna by 1.5 seconds.
That's got to be it now. Rihanna will be absolutely giggling to himself in the cockpit, because that gap is going to be almost impossible for Zimmerman to pull back now.
That's such a shame. Well, Daniel McCrowan, he was trying up the inside, but I think he pinched the brakes a bit, knowing that Rihanna was going to turn across him on the way into turn 2/turn 3, the first left-hander you come to. So he ended up losing the rear, and his teammates got involved as well. That is a disaster for Team Max Boost. They are unlikely now to be able to take victory from here. White flag is out, and Jackson Rihanna will lead across the line here. All he has to do is keep it together and hit his marks, and he's got this.
As easy as you like, and look, it's going to end up on the timesheets looking like a much easier win than it was at any point throughout. McGann and McConkie now into it. You predicted this one coming around before the race was done, so not quite done for the Team Max Boost battles just yet.
No, not done at all. Can they still maintain 4 cars in the top 5, 3 cars in the top 5 rather, as they find their way around? Well, Michael Scott and Daniel Byrne, they've not left each other alone at all. Scott Pocock is keeping a very close eye on things, and he's getting his nose into it now, knowing that it's the final lap. Daniel Byrne defensive from Michael Scott, who goes wide and manages to keep the inside going potentially for the left-hander. He does. Byrne washes wide there. Goodness gracious me. Well, looks like we're going to have to give our victor his dues here. Jared, because across the line is going to come Jackson Rihanna. He was threatening for victory at VIR. He finally gets it at Summit Point.
What a drive from all of those front 5 or 6 cars. It's to just stay out of it. Honestly, right through to the end has been a challenge enough. Here we go, Byrne and Scott coming all the way to the line. They're going to be side by side as we come across. We're going to have a three-way view of this. That is so close.
That's crazy. It was only like 100th of a second between Byrne and Scott there. Only 200ths back to Pocock. That's crazy.
And that's assuming that our timing here is the official timing that we end up with, because I can assure you it was close than that. Another couple of very tight finishes coming across the line there for Van Treek and Donahoe, only, again, 300ths of a second separating them. Adrian Loretti crosses the line dead even with Anthony Bate, according to our telemetry here. 0.00 finish. We will have to go back and get some post-race footage of this and share it with the Discord, of course, because I'm not quite sure what happened there, but that was a bit of a celebration for. Was that Tristan McLaren just coming across the line then?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah. Overcooked it a little bit there, Tristan, but a nice effort all the same.
Yeah, so that 100th of a second between Byrne and Scott that I was talking about was actually a rounding error. The iRacing timing is showing 5,000ths between them at the line, which is frankly ridiculous. These are your full results then, and keep in mind these are unofficial, pending application of admin penalties. Rihanna takes victory by 2.2 seconds from Kane Ryder. Henry Zimmerman gets back onto the podium after starting second. Brodie McConkey and Madeline McGee, they will round out your top 5, and McCrowan, man, he'll be ruining that mistake. It cost him some 4 positions at least, has to settle for 6th. Byrne wins the battle for 7th from Michael Scott, again 5,000ths of a second between them, with Pocock and Campbell rounding out your top 10. Only had to go back another couple of tenths to find Mitchell Albert and Scott Bartine, with David Gallo, Mark Heppel and Anthony Bate rounding out your top 15 and showing 1,000th between Bate and Loretti there, dead even across the line for 15th place. Ash Williams finishes 17th with Angus Milne, Joshua Van Treek and Tom Donoghue rounding out our top 20. And worth pointing out for Mitchell Campbell, up 28 positions. If he didn't have that 5-second penalty hanging over his head, he would be our hard charger with 28 positions gained. Swaddling, the first car outside of the top 20, with Ackland, Watson, Merrifield and Hawkins rounding out your top 25. Our last 4 finishes on the lead lap include the likes of Jackie Chung, Pete Zeidler. Man, what a turnaround there for Zeidler, and a bad turnaround. He was the driver with the most positions gained. He'll be ruining that one, with Alex Stevens and Craig Edwards also having big issues in that race. Hugh McLaughlin finishing just behind them, with Jason Madden pretty much alongside him across the line, it seems. Tristan McLaren, our last finisher on the lead lap. Matt Tesoriero did not make it to the lead lap. He does finish a lap down. Verney with internet issues, and well, it's an absolute junkyard of Formula Fords at the back, with Healy, Vaughan Ryder, Dan Bartush, Tony Baker, Ben Ryder and Jason Neal not able to get to the finish. In fact, Neal did not even take to the start. So wow, what a night it has been, and what a couple of chats we are going to have with our podium getters here. The first driver we're going to talk to is, of course, Jackson Rihanna. That was a very tough fight with the Max Boost cars, Jackson, but ultimately you had to keep it together to win, and that's exactly what you did.
Yeah, that was, first of all, good evening. Thanks for having me. That was one of the coolest races I've had in a long time on iRacing. I knew on probably lap 4 when, obviously, or lap early on in the race, when the groups became obvious that it was going to be tricky against 3 team cars. But yeah, that was excellent. It was just the whole time, just chess, basically a game of chess. Like, I know with a couple of laps to go, we're both trying to figure out where we wanted to be at what time. It was more than just keeping it straight. It was more or less deciding where you wanted to have your car when that white flag dropped, and I hate the way it ended. I wish it didn't end that way. But yeah, ultimately, thankfully, we kept it straight and and cross the line first.
Yeah, and I mean, regardless of how it ended, the race, you're right, the race that you had with the Max Boost guys was hard but clean. And I don't know about you, but like for me, from my perspective, when I'm driving, it feels so good to be able to have that kind of fight, knowing that the other drivers in the battle are capable of keeping that up.
100%. You nailed it on the head. Like, I knew with those guys, like, and there was some cool moves there. Like, but as the race went on, we're sort of building trust in each other to be confident enough to make different moves. Like, it was really cool. Like, I was giggling the whole way, but also trying to, also keep it straight and figure out, as I said, where you want to be at what time. So, yeah, it was just an awesome display of racecraft, and full credit to the Max Boost guys. They were really, really good and fun to race against there.
Great words there. Well, the third round of the championship, we're going to be going to Oulton Park, the Foster's layout. About as narrow as Summit Point in many places, but it's going to have plenty of opportunities for slipstreaming. I'm sure we're going to be seeing battles exactly like the one you just had.
Absolutely, and I hope so. Like, if we can do that every week, then this will be an absolute banger of a championship. Although it's short with only 4 rounds, I think it's it'll be fun, and I'm looking forward to the last 2 rounds. It'll be good.
Full series ? Thanks for joining us, Jackson. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
That's Jackson Rihanna, your race winner. The man who crossed the line in first last round at VIR crosses the line second here today after taking pole position. Kane Ryder is with us at the moment. And, Kane, we already heard Jackson's glowing review of that battle with you and the rest of the Max Boost guys. He really loved it. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, look, like that's what Formula Ford racing is all about, that side-by-side racing, and it's always good when you've got someone who will, give you the racing room, and you can have those epic battles like that. It was just a shame how it ended, but I mean, that's racing.
Yeah, certainly is, and I think a bit of a chaotic race as well. With this many cars on the grid, we were bound to have incidents of some kind. How hard were you looking at your mirrors on the way into turn 1?
Look, at the start it was all right because I had 2 teammates behind me, so I was pretty comfortable going into turn 1. But like, I was surprised we didn't get a VSC, that's for sure, because I think we had 40 on the grid, and 40 around here is a lot of cars.
Yeah, many. Well, regardless, this I guess because this is only a recruitment series and not an official championship, you're probably not that fussed about the points situation, but I think you should still take a lot of good feedback coming into Oulton Park that you are a contender here in the Formula Fords.
Yeah, but you always want to win, don't you? So, like, but yeah, look, it is a bit of fun, and like, I really enjoy these cars, so look, regardless if it was, where I was in the championship, I'd still be here. So yeah, these are good fun cars. So I'd suggest anyone who's thinking about having a go at FDL, this is the perfect time to come along and have a go.
And from a broadcaster's perspective, Formula Ford's one of my favourite categories to commentate. It's always fantastic, especially when we've got guys like you behind the driver's seat. Kane Ryder, thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you next week at Oulton Park.
No worries, guys. Cheers. Thank you.
And we'll let Kane Ryder celebrate another podium there. And that's going to round things off for this round, Jared. I was really happy with how all of this went off. Yes, it was chaotic, but it was entertaining, which is exactly what I want to see.
Yeah, utter chaos. And would you have it any other way for Formula Fords, really? I think it's exactly what we expected tonight. I'm like Kane Ryder. I'm surprised we didn't see a VSC, and I think the only saving grace tonight, well, probably the 2 saving graces tonight that kept us out of effectively having a rolling restart to kick off lap 2 were the fact that Summit Point has so much runoff area that it's it really gets the cars out of the way when they have incidents. And as of course our race control friend mentioned in the YouTube chat, people just towing without speaking to race control, I think, is about the only thing that kept that VSC from coming into effect, which is, look, it's a real shame because I don't mind seeing the little yellow flashing sign come up. It's a bit of fun.
Yeah, I think the same. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I'm hoping we get a VSC at Alton Park. That would be silly, but still, there's a lot of potential there. And if you're interested in racing in this league, well, it is free entry, so I'm sure that they'll still be taking drivers onto the grid. Hopefully, you'll be able to get a spot because the field is absolutely packed right now. Just in time for next week's round number 3 at Alton Park Fosters. As I mentioned, it's going to be a track where slipstream is key. It is incredibly narrow. In some places has about as much runoff as Summit Point, but not a huge amount. So we'll need to keep an eye very close on the action for next week. Can Rihanna continue a victory run, or can Kane Ryder hit back? That is the big question. Can Daniel McCrohan convert a pole position into a race win? That is another question to keep in mind. Or will we see any more surprises next week in the Formula Drivers League? Everything simulated Formula Ford Recruitment Series, supported by Player One Sim Gear, right here on Simple Racing Broadcasts. We want to thank you all for watching. I'm Reese Gardner. We have Jared Cole alongside me in the commentary box, and also producing behind the scenes, bringing you those beautiful live pictures. Thank you very much to all the league supporters, all of the crew at FDL for putting this series on. We'll see you next week at Alton Park.